Can the witness see Exhibit 1?
Yeah, just loaded.
Okay. Sir, you've testified that you're an investigator and have watched multiple videos and looked at still photographs in this matter?
Correct.
And showing you Exhibit 1, the individual centered with the bald head, who is that?
Joseph Rosenbaum.
And the individual who is standing behind him wearing a blue cap, a gray hoodie, and a kind of purplish mask with glasses, who is that?
Anthony Huber.
And Mr. Rosenbaum, does he have anything on his head at this time?
No.
I didn't hear that, sir.
No, he does not have anything on his head.
And what color is his shirt?
Pale red.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 2, and I can submit all of these photographs digitally after the hearing. This is a still shot of the events of 8/25/2020 at the Car Source lot at what I'll refer to as 63rd and Sheridan Road. Do you see an individual in full stride running?
Yeah, I guess kind of off left center, if you will.
Correct.
Yep.
Who is that based upon your investigation?
That is also Joseph Rosenbaum, as seen earlier in the pictures.
And who is he running towards, if you know?
That'd be Kyle Rittenhouse running from him.
Okay. And this is a still shot of a video you've watched, correct?
Correct.
And the video begins with an individual by the name of Mr. Zeminski telling Rosenbaum to get or kill my client, Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
I'm going to object to the relevance, Your Honor.
Mr. Richards?
It goes to my client why he's running and being chased by somebody who's going to be an armed robber.
Well, that's a conclusion, but I'm gonna allow give a little latitude here, but we'll take this on a question by question basis, okay?
Understood. You saw
Can you
that
repeat the
video?
question, sir?
You saw this video, and in the video it starts with Mr. Zeminski saying to Rosenbaum, get him or kill him, correct?
Excuse me. I have not heard that line, and I definitely could not say with certainty that I heard Mr. Zeminski saying that.
Okay, did you hear Mr. Zeminski give Mr. Rosenbaum some sort of direction before he began chasing him?
Objection, relevance.
I'm asking if he heard it, then we'll know whether it's relevant or not if he did.
I'll allow it, just the answer at this point.
No, I have not.
Okay. Showing you what's been marked, strike that. This individual in the far right with his arm raised up, do you know who that is?
The one that your mouse just pointed to?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Mr. Zeminski.
Okay, my client did not fire the first shot at Car Source on August 25th of 2020, correct?
Objection, relevance.
What's the relevance of that then, Mr. Richards?
It goes to my client why he's running and why Mr. Zeminski's shooting at him.
Well, it might, but not with the question that you asked. So I'm going to sustain the objection in terms of who fired whether or not your client fired a shot that time.
Mr. Zeminski fired his gun while Mr. Rosenbaum was chasing my client, correct?
Objection, relevance.
Mr. Richards?
It's relevant. It goes to the events in question of how it was Mr. Rosenbaum became shot.
Your Honor, we're getting into what I know the defense wants to do today, which is make this a self-defense case. And as the court has already indicated, that's an issue for trial. What happened before this incident, what happened with regard to Mr. Zeminski is beyond the scope of this prelim. It does not go to the probable cause as to whether or not the defendant committed a felony. And I object to the relevance of this.
It does.
But relevance is a low burden. I'll tell you what, I'll overrule on this question, but again, I'm going to keep a tight rein on it, Mr. Richards, as you understand.
Understood.
All right, go ahead. Detective, you can answer this question if you remember it. Otherwise, we'll have to have the question given again.
You could repeat it, please.
My client in Exhibit 2 is running from Mr. Rosenbaum when a shot is fired by Mr. Zeminski, correct?
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 3. That's a picture of Mr. Rosenbaum after he's been shot and he's wearing a mask, correct?
Correct.
It's a crime in Wisconsin to commit a crime while masked, correct?
In relevance.
Wait, I hear somebody in the background. Please refrain from saying something if there's somebody commenting in the background or making noises, please. Thank you.
Your Honor, I objected to relevance of this question.
Yeah, I that one, go ahead, Mr. I'll let you respond, Mr. Richards, but
It goes to the events in question. The state is trying to put forth a one-sided, stilted view of what happened, protecting someone who doesn't deserve protection of the state. He's a masked robber.
okay, this is preliminary hearing. I'm going to sustain the objection, and for purposes of preliminary hearing, that's outside the scope. It's not relevant for these purposes. Mr. Richards.
Mr. Rosenbaum is not wearing a shirt in Exhibit 3, correct?
Not wearing it traditionally.
He's wearing it around his face, correct?
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 4. The bearded individual in the upper right-hand corner, do you recognize him?
Objection. Relevance.
All right, what's the relevance of this now, Mr.
Mr.
Richards?
Zeminski holding a firearm, the individual who shot first at Kyle. You can see the
Well,
firearm clearly.
Okay, but that's at this juncture, your second part of your statement or your comment, shot first, is outside the scope of this examination. For that purpose, I'm gonna sustain that objection.
As to Exhibit 4, do you recognize the bearded individual?
Objection. It's the same question that I've just objected to. It's not relevant.
I'm not asking about the gun. I'm trying to identify the individual for the purposes of this hearing.
Your Honor, we're talking about individuals that don't have anything to do with this. They are outside the scope of this preliminary hearing. There were literally hundreds of individuals there that evening, and we're not going to expand this preliminary hearing into identifying a cast of characters that the defense thinks is relevant to their self-defense argument. That is well beyond the scope of probable cause as to whether or not the defendant committed a felony.
Mr. Richards, as an offer of proof, until I a rule with respect to these individuals that how many individuals are you going to or you anticipate naming? Who is this individual allegedly at this point?
It is Mr. Zeminski, the individual who is charged with firing the first shot in 20 CM 1219, who this officer detective, I apologize, who this officer testified is depicted in Exhibit 3. I'm identifying him this is a clear shot of that individual.
All right, I'll allow it for that limited purpose. All right, go ahead, detective, if you can answer the question.
The individual in the upper right-hand corner is, in fact, Joshua Zeminski.
The bearded individual, correct? Just to clarify.
Oh, correct.
Thank you. Exhibit 5. The individual on the far right of Exhibit 5 is Mr. Huber wearing the hoodie with 2 backpack straps, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 6. This is a still photograph of the incident occurring at 61st and approximately 61st and Sheridan Road, correct?
Mr. Richards, are you testifying or are you going to ask this witness to identify something? I understand you're trying to move the matter a bit, but shouldn't you
It's
ask
cross-examination.
this witness if he knows what that image is? All right.
Your Honor,
But
I get to
you're not asking a
cross-examine.
question. You're testifying. Yes, you do, and I'm giving you that right.
Sir,
You don't have a right
Okay.
to make us to ask. All right. Go ahead. Put the question in the
recognize
proper
Exhibit
form, Mr.
6?
Richards, and you allow it.
okay. Sir, do you recognize Exhibit 6?
Yes, I do.
Okay, where that is in the area of 61st and Sheridan Road in the county of Kenosha?
Yes, sir.
And this is a still photograph from a video you reviewed?
Correct.
My client is on the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
in the center of the picture, for lack of a better location?
Yeah.
And an individual runs up on my client, correct?
Correct.
You've watched the video. Does my client shoot that individual when he backs off?
Say when he backs off. I'm sorry.
My client does not shoot that individual or shoot at that individual, correct?
Correct.
The individual in the white pants running towards my client, that is the individual who jumps up and kicks my client in the head, correct?
It appears he attempts to. I don't think contact is made.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 7. You've seen this photograph?
Correct.
And that is an unidentified individual who I will refer as to Jump Kick Man kicking my client, correct?
Correct.
You can see my client being knocked backwards in this photograph, correct?
Correct.
So contact was made, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as Kyle is being knocked backwards, you see an individual with a skateboard approaching my client, correct?
Yes, sir.
And based upon the clothing and the straps, who is that?
That's Anthony Huber, sir.
Okay. And he has just retrieved his skateboard from swinging at it, trying to hit Kyle earlier, correct?
Correct.
Next exhibit. You testified on direct examination that Mr. Huber tries to hit my client in the shoulder neck area, correct?
Correct.
He hits him in the back of the head. Is that a fair statement based upon Exhibit 8?
The picture's a freeze frame. It's hard to see the actual motion of it. I mean, contact's definitely near the back of the head, but I couldn't say there's direct contact.
On the early morning hours of August 26th, you took a photograph of a large bump on the back of my client's head where he had turned himself in at the Antioch Police Department, correct?
I did not take that photograph. My partner did.
Okay, you've seen that photograph, correct?
Correct.
And that photograph was on my client's head, not his shoulder or neck. Fair statement?
Correct.
The individual, which you see his hind end, that is the person who's unidentified, who I would refer to as Jump Kick Man, hitting the ground, correct?
Yes, sir.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit number 9. This is a photograph of Mr. Huber with his hand on Kyle Rittenhouse's gun, correct?
Yes, sir.
And do you know of any reasonable purpose why an individual can attempt to disarm somebody?
There can be, yes.
If the person has committed a crime?
That'd be fair to say.
Okay. Exhibit 9 shows the individual Jump Kick Man running away from the scene, correct?
Yes.
He's never identified himself to law enforcement or complained of any injury or any endangerment, correct?
Correct.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 10. This is Mr. Huber holding his chest, dropping his skateboard on the ground in the fore of the image, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Grosowitz is surrendering to my client, putting his hands up, correct?
His hands are up, correct.
Okay. And in his right hand, you can see the butt of a 9mm handgun, correct?
I couldn't tell you caliber, sir, but there's a firearm in his hand.
Okay. And through your investigation later on, you know that it's a 9mm handgun, correct?
I believe it's a .40 caliber, sir, but I'd have to consult my reports.
And you would know more than me. Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 11.
Just so everyone is aware, I am not able to show firearms on the screen. That's what I was banned for. I wasn't banned, but I was censored or whatever happened. So I have to cover up anytime there's gore or guns that are going to be on the screen.
Eventually, he dropped his hands and went closer, according to the video, correct?
Yes, sir.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 12. Mr. Groskowitz, in his right hand, you can clearly see a firearm, correct?
Yes, sir.
He's pointing it at my client, correct?
It appears so on the picture, sir.
Okay, and my client fires one shot and you can see that Mr. Groskowitz's arm is hit, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's the last individual my client shot on August 25th, 2020.
Yes, sir.
And there are individuals in this video at approximately 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, which are approaching my client, and he points the firearm at them but does not shoot, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he gets up and he goes to turn himself into law enforcement with his hands up, correct?
Correct.
And he's told to get out of the street or he'll be pepper sprayed, correct?
Objection, relevance.
I'll sustain that.
He goes towards law enforcement with his hands up, not holding his firearm in his arms, correct?
Correct.
He approaches a police car and gets onto the sidewalk.
I'm going to object to the relevance, Your Honor.
Mr. Richards?
It's relevant.
For everyone that doesn't understand what I just said, it breaks terms of service for YouTube. I cannot show guns on a live stream. You could record a video of a gun and upload it to YouTube, and that's fine. But showing it on a live stream breaks the terms and conditions. Too bad if you don't like that. Okay, I don't like it neither. But I have to keep the channel going.
In a time frame on August 25th of less than 5 minutes, correct?
Correct.
In your investigation and looking at all the hours of videos, did you ever see Kyle act inappropriate towards somebody who was not threatening him with a firearm?
Objection, relevance.
Again, I'm going to
Relevant.
sustain.
Government
I'm
just
gonna
doesn't want to
sustain
hear the
that.
truth.
Mr. Richards, here's the key. You have an opportunity at trial, but we're here at preliminary hearing. I understand perhaps you're frustrated, but perhaps we continue the examination.
Okay. You can turn it down. Just checking my notes.
Okay.
For everyone who keeps telling me to go to Rumble, you can't go live on Rumble. That's what I do. So that's, I mean, I have an account, but I haven't uploaded anything.
You've been contacted by Mr. McGinnis's lawyer telling you that he does not agree with the statements which are contained in the criminal complaint regarding what happened on August 25th, correct, Detective?
Objection, relevance.
I will sustain that as well for purposes of preliminary hearing.
In the video, before my client is knocked to the ground by the strike to the head, you hear numerous individuals yelling, "Kill him, get him, cranium him," correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Richards. Mr. Pinger, any redirect for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Detective. That'll conclude your testimony. Thank you. State has no further witnesses, is that correct?
That is correct.
State rests.
Correct.
All right, thank you. Mr. Richards, do you have any witnesses at this point?
Your Honor, I don't need to call any. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then the defense rests, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. All right.
I would move in
Mr.
the,
Pinger. Oh,
Your Honor, I'm sorry to interrupt.
okay, go ahead.
I would move in the exhibits that were
That's right.
testified. And I can
Well,
send
all
a
right, let's,
digital,
okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I apologize. And I can send a digital copy or I can actually have the hard copies of the photographs, whatever the court and the record would prefer.
All right, we'll take that up in a minute. Mr. Binger, I know there was some issues with the, I believe it was Exhibit 3, the photograph, but aside, as to Mr. Richards moving all exhibits in, any objections to that?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then all exhibits shall be received. And now as far as, I assume if you want to upload those, that might be easier to allow all parties to receive those rather than physically having to bring those down to the courthouse. That's all right, Mr. Binger?
That's fine.
That's fine.
And, all right, good. Then that, there you go. That can be what you do. All right, then, Mr. Binger, as to state's position on bind over.
Your Honor, I believe the evidence in this preliminary hearing has established probable cause that the defendant committed a felony on August 25th, 2020. The evidence indicates that the defendant shot and killed 2 individuals and shot and wounded another, which forms the basis for any number of felonies under our laws. All this court needs to find is that a felony was committed and probably committed by the defendant, and I believe this evidence supports that. With regard to the defense claim as to self-defense, that does not defeat probable cause at this stage of the proceeding. That would be an issue for trial. So I would ask that the court bind the defendant over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richards.
Your Honor, we would object to bind over, maintaining all objections to the pretrial rulings and the bind over. The government can go off on their chaotic quest, but the evidence is clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. First off, the court does find that hearsay testimony is reliable for purpose of determining whether probable cause exists and is allowable pursuant to section 970.038 of the Wisconsin statutes, and further allowable to the case of State v. O'Brien 354 with second 753 2014 case. In addition, all reasonable conflicting inferences at this juncture are resolved in favor of the state. Therefore, based upon the testimony presented today by the detective, I do find the state has demonstrated probable cause that in this case, felonies were committed relating to the counts in the complaint. I bind over as such that probable cause further exists that this defendant committed those felonies, including count 1 and the other felonies here in this file or in the criminal complaint. Therefore, as I do find that probable cause exists that the defendant committed those felonies, the defendant in this case is bound over before the Kenosha County Circuit Court, before the Honorable Bruce E. Schrader at this time. Now, Mr. Binger, barring any, will there be any, I assume, Mr. Richards, you would have let me know by now, but is there any substitution requested at this point?
No.
Okay. Then will you be filing? I do wish to move to arraignment if there is an information which has been filed, or will that be required to come back here at a different date?
Your Honor, I would request an arraignment date, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Mr.
We'll be filing an
Richards, state has up
within 30
30
days.
Right. State has 30 days. We're going to calendar that, though, just so the parties are aware, back here before this court, and then we'll set it on for arraignment. Bond will continue as previously set. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Puddin' Puss, for the donation and all the support. All right, everyone. That was pretty interesting. Didn't sound like a fair court to me, but, you know, it's just a preliminary hearing, just the first step in the process of going to court. Unfortunately, I know that all too well. So, seems like they're wrapping it up for now. So we will shut this down so it can be archived. What we're going to do is basically I'm going to search the feed and see what else I can find. I'm sure there's going to be lots of stuff going on today. Thursday is usually pretty busy, Thursday and Friday. So well, let's hear what they're saying.
Within 30 days. So the first week in January would be fine.
Anyways, I'm going to search the feed, see what else is going on, and we'll go live again just a few minutes. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell icon. That way you'll be notified when we go live. Probably within an hour. I think there's supposed to be a rally going on in 10 minutes. I believe it's in Atlanta, Georgia. And we will most likely be going live there. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for everyone that donated, anyone that purchased merch or joined the membership program. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are what's keeping the channel going, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much, and I will see you in a